to RIL friendships. It does happen occasionally.
Although we did grow up in the same hometown.
That is true.
But we didn't know each other.
We grew up in the same hometown, and then it took us a few decades to circle back to each other. I loved this book so much. When Brisa was first developing it and she first went out with it, I was like, well, do I get to read it? And she said, oh, I mean, okay, if you want to. And I fell in love with it. Can you give an elevator pitch of the book? Have you worked that out yet?
Yeah, that's the hardest question to answer, especially with a new book and as a new author. I'm like, what's the book about?
Yes.
It's about Cinnamon Scott, who's an aspiring writer in New York. Her parents died tragically, and it completely derails her, and she drowns her sorrows in parties and boys and cocktails. And when her pregnant sister calls from London and summons her over to help, she gets on a plane, and her sister is on bed rest in the Savoy Hotel. And so Cinnamon is whiling away the hours in the iconic London hotel, and she, of course, finds her way to the bar. And there she meets an attractive historian who's writing a history of the Savoy, and that kind of gets her interested in the history. And then late at night, she meets the late night bartender who starts telling her stories from the past, and she learns about a real life female, the first celebrity female mixologist who worked at the Savoy starting in 1903 when women weren't even allowed at the bar. And she goes to the historian and says, oh my gosh, you have to put her in the book. And he says, there really isn't anything about her. And it sets Cinnamon on this path to write this real life woman back in history, and at the same time find her way back onto her own path and find her own story. How'd I do?
Yes. Very good. Like a Sears elevator pitch. Like,
yeah, it's a long elevator
but
ride.
like, that's okay. That's okay. No, it's lovely. And I want to know, what was the initial seed of the idea? Because you do something really interesting here, which is you have a completely fictional contemporary story, but based on a real person. So was the seed of the story this person?
Yeah. So I travel a lot for work, and I spend a lot of time at the Savoy. I'm a theater producer, and the Savoy Hotel was actually built around the Savoy Theater in London. And so I was sitting at the bar at the Savoy, much like my main character. And in the menu, there was a little footnote next to one of the drinks that said, created by Ada Coleman in 1903. And I thought, oh, cool, like a female mixologist back then. So I Googled her, and about 30 seconds later had read everything there was, which was almost nothing. But was kind of intrigued, but then just tucked the idea away and went on about my business. And then a few years later, when I was thinking I might want to do something creative and write a book, it popped into my head again. And I thought, oh, I should look that up, because surely there's more about her now. Sure enough, 30 seconds later, still the same information. But because I'm not a historian, I thought, okay, how do I tell her story in a more contemporary way? And I thought, I suddenly was like, I need this woman to be remembered. And so it created Cinnamon with that same drive. But
Lovely.
Then I made her way more wild and sassy and interesting than me.
As we all do. That's what fiction is for. That's what fiction is for. Sidebar about Brisa. So Brisa is, as she said, a theater producer. She is also a businesswoman. You've worked in tech. You've worked in nonprofits. You just started a spirits company called Literati Spirits, which is a literature-themed vodka line, and it's so good. It's obnoxiously good. Like something you would think would just be gimmicky is like the best vodka I've ever had. But what is it about cocktails, spirits that attracts you? What do you think is the story there?
So growing up, I was never a drinker. I didn't drink in college. I mean, I was a theater nerd. Like I was like, I had to protect my voice. Exactly.
Yes.
So it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s and got invited to a cocktail bar and like had a proper, Cosmopolitan was the first drink I ever had. And I thought, oh, I love this, like the ritual of it and the beautiful setting of a cocktail bar and just the way the conversations were happening. And I thought, oh, like this, it's not the frat parties and that. I was like, I'm not interested. But so
the lukewarm Zima behind the couch is not appealing.
Exactly. So that's what got me interested in like the setting of a cocktail bar. And then throughout my career, I've leveraged cocktail bars for professional purposes because when I first got to New York to be a theater producer, I would go have these meetings with other theater producers and they'd be behind their big desk and I'd be here and, it would be like, ugh. And but I found out that a lot of theater producers hung out at a bar called Sardi's. And so I started going there regularly. And what I found was sitting at a bar with these people, it's a level playing field.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can connect with them socially, but also talk business. And so the bar became this magical place for me where I was able to take a seat at the table before maybe I would have otherwise been invited to the table.
That's a very, very good point. So given all of this, given that you do a million things and you've done them all with aplomb, why write? You know there's no money in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Wait, what? I've always been a huge reader. I mean, I just devour books. I'm an audio listener, so I've been your biggest fan for a million years.
Thank you.
And with all my travel and with all the things I was doing for work, there were just a lot of people and everything. It was always crowds of people. And I thought, what can I do that's just for me and that's creative? And I signed up for an online writing course and I didn't tell anybody. I just said, the course was a 90-day novel. You write for an hour a day and you just, whether it's good or not, whether you know what you're doing or not, you just sort of sit and do it. And I found I really, really enjoyed it. And because I hadn't told anybody, it was just something for me. I could do it with no expectations. I didn't grow up saying, "Oh my God, I'm going to be an author." But I have spent my whole career in storytelling,
yes.
in theater producing. So, it's not that different how you design a theater piece versus a book. And at the end of it, I had this manuscript, and I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe there's something here."
So, what was the writing process like? Did you know that you wanted to write this book when you started doing this project? Like, was that the book you were working on when you did this?
No. So actually, when I did the writing class, I was writing a different book about the Champagne widows, because you might sense a theme, alcohol and women. And so that is the book that I wrote through the class. And then at the end of it, they said, you can submit it to us and we'll tell you if it's any good. And so I submitted it and they said, yeah, you have real potential here. Are you interested in going through the editing process that it takes to get a book to here? And I said, sure, why not? And so after I went through that process, they said you should submit to agents. And so I did and got an agent with the Champagne book. But then when she went out to pitch it to publishers, it just didn't quite hit. Somebody else had written something similar and this and that. And
that's the worst.
But because I had gotten into this discipline of writing for an hour a day and getting the agent and the submission process took several months, by the time we got to the point where it was like, what do we want to do with this book? I said, well, I have another one, which was this one. And she said, what, like you have an idea for another one? I'm like, no, I have a whole other book. And so
an agent's dream.
Yeah. So we submitted this one and it almost immediately got picked up. But, and then once this one got picked up, I just kept writing and I found that it really helps because I just love the writing process and it makes it so I'm not too precious about anything. And also so that as trends change and as more ideas come, I just keep creating content.
And there's something really valuable, I think, coming out of entertainment or business or all of these other areas where you can work so hard on something and put so much energy, especially the performing arts, so much energy into developing something, and then it just falls apart, right? It never sees the light of day. And if you can take that kind of work ethic that you already have to actually creating something that you're in control of, and granted, it may never get published and, anything can happen, but you at least are like, this is something I can control.
Yeah.
I can control what's on the page.
That was so appealing to me.
Oh, I know.
Well, and then when it came time for the editing process, they're like, okay, I'm sorry, but I think we need to cut this section. And I mean, I'm used to theater producing where it's like, you want to cut a song or a scene. I mean, that's like 20 actors that need new costumes or a different set or, it's a huge thing. I'm like, oh, you just highlight it and hit delete. I mean, like, this is easy.
It's very refreshing. That's great. Your love of theater began actually as a performer. We were both child actors.
One more successful than the other.
In Oregon, that doesn't matter. We started from the same place. We had the same agent. We found all of this out much later at Sardi's in New York over our first date.
Literally at
our
Sardi's.
First date.
Yes,
That's when we realized that we shared this common
See,
DNA.
all the magical things happen at a bar.
It's okay. It's fine. She's actually an amazing singer, and we'll just wipe the floor with you at Show Tunes karaoke. It's really obnoxious how good you
Theater
are.
nerd.
And you have not been performing for quite a while. What does it feel like to have your art now out in the world? Was it scary? Did you have trepidation? Or does it feel like you're coming back on the stage?
It feels a little more like I'm coming back on the stage, and it feels like I loved performing, but just didn't have the skills to go that path. And so, this has been fun to be able to put ideas on my head and put it out in the world. But I think because I did perform professionally through high school, I also developed some of the thick skin that I think you need when you put any creative product out there. And I think that's really helped because I didn't go into this thinking, oh, I have to be a writer. I've just been having fun with it. I've been really trying to just say, I love it. It tells a story I wanted to be told. And I hope readers enjoy it. And I hope they discover the story of Ada Coleman, this famous bartender. And if it's not for them, oh well. And I think you learn that as a performer. Like, you have to be willing to just say, I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, and you have to learn that early. I was just having this conversation actually with someone who was saying, how do you deal with like when people don't like something you do? And I'm like, their opinion of me is none of my business.
Right.
I'm not writing it for the people who don't like it.
I mean, of course, that's none of you in this room. You all love both.
Yeah, no, books. But I mean, like,
right.
It didn't work for you. That's okay.
Yeah, right.
Move on. Life is too short to hate read books. Like, if you don't like it, just move on to the next book. Like, find your joy, people.
Right.
Come on.
Exactly right.
Anyway, so given that, you have kind of carved out this, I mean, it's one book and I don't want to pigeonhole you, but I feel personally invested in these kind of untold stories of these women in like early mixology or something in that vein, like you're talking about this kind of, it's, first of all, it's classy. Look at this cover. Like, can we just appreciate how beautiful this cover is? So it's got, the allure and the party aspect and that fun, but then you're able to kind of slip in like the pill and the peanut butter to the dog of like, this is actually about this lost piece of history. And do you have more kind of in that wheelhouse that you're playing with?
Here's the thing. I came to these ideas because I love cocktails in that world, and also because they require so much research. I had to sit at that Savoy bar and drink so many cocktails. So, I had friends who were always like, oh, you're always at that bar. I was like, I'm working, people. Yeah. I'm working.
To not do something with it would just be...
Exactly. I worked very hard on the research.
Yes.
No, but I mean, I think I find these stories around things that I'm interested in, and it's fun to spend time in my imagination sharing these stories, particularly women's stories. I mean, in the book, Cinnamon and the historian have the conversation, but it happens all the time that there'll be a woman in history, like this historic bartender who worked there for 25 years at the Savoy. And I talked to the archivist at the Savoy, and she was like, yeah, people say we just don't have a lot of documentation on what she was doing while she was working at the bar, other than that she was known and famous. And I mean, it's like, well, we know what was happening at the hotel. We know what was happening in London at the time. It's really not that big a leap to say, oh, maybe she was part of all this. Right? We know she was standing behind the bar. It's like, why is that so difficult to find her? There's like a huge Ada-shaped hole in the history of the Savoy. And so, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about that. And there's so many women, particularly in spirits, who were left out. Yeah,
or they were you see this a lot in wine, where it's maybe like a fourth or fifth generation winemaker, and then it falls to like a daughter, and that's because maybe all the guys were wiped out in a war, for instance, and it's left to the daughter to try to run something, and there's no credit given for shepherding this thing when you don't even have the autonomy to be writing the checks, to be having the bank account, to be doing, the barrier to entry of success is so much harder.
And yet they're there. They exist.
There. She also did a lot of really interesting research about the Savoy in general. And this came out, we were talking about this yesterday. So we had the really wonderful experience of my husband and I were in London 2 months ago, and at the same time that Brisa happened to be there, and she was like, "Well, come to the Savoy, we'll have a drink." I was like, "I love this, let's do it." And as we were pulling in, our cabbie told us something that is a fun little obscure fact about the Savoy. Would you please share with the room?
So there are lots of facts about the Savoy, about the hotel history, but this, because the theater was built before the hotel, it was London's first luxury hotel, built to serve the audience coming to see the shows at the theater. When you come into the driveway, normally you would drive on the left side of the road in London, but the one road in all of the UK where you can drive on the right is coming in the driveway of the Savoy, and that was because the theater was on the right side, and when the carriages were coming, the producer didn't want the women's skirts to have to drag through the mud of the driveway, so they got special dispensation from the monarchy to be able to drive on the right. And so still to this day, it's the only road where you can do that. And it freaks cab drivers out.
He was like, "You know what's interesting about this?" And I didn't know what was interesting about it. That's great. Also, the American bar is called the American bar because...
Yeah, so Cinnamon in the book says, "Oh, I must be such a cliche that I'm American coming over to London and hanging out in an American bar." And she learns that actually American bars were a British creation because cocktails were considered to be American. Mixed drinks back in the early 1900s, that was an American drink. So they created American bars to serve cocktails as opposed to a pint or wine, yeah, or whatever they would be drinking there.
Okay.
And there are so many things. I mean, if I had been allowed to put in all of the fun facts I wanted, this book would be twice as long. And then my editors kept saying, "Nope, you got to take out, they want to follow Cinnamon's story." And I'm like, "But this is so interesting."
Right. But what if Cinnamon finds this out?
Yeah, right, exactly.
What if she's the one telling us?
I mean, that was the hardest thing about the editing process, was taking out the history pieces in service of the pace and the story. And I get it, but I was just like,
it's also really hard when you know a lot about a world to decide what the reader needs to know.
Yeah.
I definitely went through that with this book because it was like, there's so much to talk about in audiobooks, but I feel like my editing principle there, to your editor's point, was it's only in there if the reader needs to know it to understand the story that I'm trying to tell.
Oh, that must have been so hard. Because this is like, you're telling your day-to-day,
yes,
like what?
It was... And I'm like, is this relevant? Is this not? Or they'd ask me questions that I was like, oh, I don't think we need to talk about that.
But see, I would have wanted to read that.
Yeah, well.
Oh, well.
Okay. All right. Speaking of books, we're going to do a little...
Have you guys all read or listened to that? It's a fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you have to listen to it, right? Well, and read it.
Thank you. Yeah. Both. Why not? Why not both? We're going to do a little fast five here about books in general. And I like to wrap these up, and then we'll open up to questions for me, for Brisa, for the whole thing. I just really wanted you to have a good understanding of what this lovely book is. But let's get your opinion about books. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
The book that made you a reader.
Mists of Avalon, 1000%.
We share that in common. The book that made you want to be a writer.
I mean, I read so many books, which is what made me want to be a writer. But when I was taking the novelry course where I was, this 90-day novel class, they said to pick a hero book that was like the perfect book of what you wish you could someday write. And so I picked Beautiful Ruins by Jess Walter. And if you know that, I mean, it's an incredible book. And if you know that book, you'll definitely see my attempts to kind of follow in my little tiny footsteps behind his. But yes, I would say that book.
That's so good. Also, for audio fans in there, Eduardo Ballerini's performance of Beautiful Ruins is my favorite audiobook probably ever. Let's go with ever.
Other than your own.
I don't listen to my own.
Yours are my favorite.
Favorite book of all time? Is
favorite
that possible?
Book of all time.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. Last call at the
Cheap shot. Okay. A book that you think about a surprising amount. Like, so not necessarily a great book, not necessarily your favorite book, but it just kind of lives with you.
So the book that I read this year that I've been recommending to everybody, and it's unusual because I'm a big fiction reader, and it's nonfiction, but it reads like fiction. And it's a book called Kingmaker. And it's about Pamela Harriman, who was this, again, like with these women's stories, this real life woman. She married Winston Churchill's son, but ended up being very instrumental in ending the war, and then just went on to have this amazing life, came to New York, was involved in theater, then went to DC and was super involved in anointing like a bunch of major politicians that we know now. And it was just her story. I mean, if I didn't know it was nonfiction, I would have been like, there's no way she did all this. There's absolutely no way. And so I please read Kingmaker, because she was a remarkable woman.
How interesting.
By Sonia Purnell.
Oh, she's written some great books.
Yes.
Great women.
Yeah. And so this is her newest, and I blew my mind.
Okay. A book you wish you'd written.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have one for that.
Really?
But what's yours?
Oh, well, I mean, at my most pretentious, Middlemarch. What's a book that I wish I'd written? I mean, I think it's like books where I'm reading it and I'm angry that it's so good.
Yeah. Well, that's how I felt about Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil.
Well, okay.
Like
Yes.
all the V. Schwab books, I'm like, if only. Like, she's just like writes with poetry, and her last book had vampires, so I was just like, oh. So I don't know that I wish I'd written it, but I felt like she wrote that just for me.
So can we design a book for you to write? Because what I would really like, if you're taking requests, I would really like a vampire bar.
Oh yeah, I like that.
That's what I would like.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm not sure if it's
Consider
just
it
blood
done.
cocktails for vampires, or if it's a
Maybe some
vampire bar
mixology
like
involved.
serving humans, and that's part of the
Oh.
racket. Okay, we'll workshop that
accepting
later.
pre-orders.
Yeah, we'll workshop that. Any questions about anything?
Wait, but before we get
No?
to questions from the
Okay.
group, I want to ask you a question,
Okay.
because we talked a little bit about thank you for listening, but you also wrote My Oxford Year,
Did.
which recently had a big Netflix movie.
Yes, it did.
Did any of you guys see yes. And it shares with Last Call at the Savoy that it takes place in England
That is true.
and has a sexy professor historian
Yeah,
character.
That is true.
So talk a little bit about, this is set in LA.
Yeah.
We are.
Yes.
But about why England, connect with that.
Okay, so it's a good question. The story of My Oxford Year is actually a very unique story in that it started life as a screenplay. That was not my original screenplay, but I was a screenwriter at the time, and so I was hired to work on the screenplay. And because I had gone to Oxford, I was hired specifically to work on the authenticity issue, because as happens in the Hollywood development process, it starts as one thing. It started as a melodrama. A rom-com writer was brought in to make it, to turn it into a rom-com. And then I was brought in with a friend of mine to fix the fact that in the draft I got, this was a graduate student at Oxford who would be, under normal circumstances, just living and breathing her very particular subject, and instead was going from art class to math class to the cafeteria and meeting friends with her tray at the cafeteria. And I was like, oh, okay. So in working on the screenplay, and the producers got to know my opinions about the character and what I thought the story was really about, but everything I wanted to do was beyond the limited scope of a studio screenplay. And so they said, do you think there's a book here? And I said, nothing has ever wanted to be a book more. Like, it is about poetry and grief and love and all the biggies set against the backdrop of one of the most iconic places in the Western world. And I just really, really wanted to tell that story. So to their credit, they let me tell my version of the story. And that's what the book is. I think if that opportunity hadn't happened, I would have still written a book set in the UK, set in Oxford, because it was such a formative time of my life. And I was actually working on a historical fiction novel that was kind of like speculative, not full-on fantasy, but just alternate history. And it's set around Tennyson and all the poets of the time.
Maybe we need that one.
I'm getting there. Historical fiction is hard.
Yeah.
So that to me is, I love writing Oxford. I love writing a setting that I love so much. And a lot of LA, my love of LA goes into that, but also my love of Venice goes into that book, and doubly into Casanova LLC. I love setting.
Yes.
I really do.
I get it.
That could be enough to like get a story out of me. For
When
sure.
you have to go and do research.
Whoops.
Yep.
Whoops. Okay. Was that
Yes,
that
thank you.
questions? Yes.
How did the Savoy Hotel respond to your book?
They have been lovely. So you don't need permission to write about a place. And so I wrote it without talking to them, just on the off chance that, well, I didn't know if anything was going to happen to it, but I didn't want them to hate it. But then when I started talking to them, I told them it was about Ada Coleman. And the Savoy, the fact that they have a full-time archivist is remarkable. I mean, they really understand their history, and they've been nothing but wonderful. I've spent a ton of time there since then. They are going to put the book behind the bar. So
Are they?
Yeah. So they've been really, really, really lovely. And I've been hosting so many authors and friends, and I think they're just excited that I mean, it's a love letter to the hotel. And so they've been really lovely.
It's you always have that. It's kind of a little tentative. I felt this way. I went back to Oxford a couple of months ago when we were in London, and it was post movie, and I was a little nervous because I was like, I don't know if, especially in Oxford, if they're going to have an opinion or attitude about popular culture. But they were so welcoming and so genuinely excited about it, and I think I to have that reticence of like, it's okay, it's not really about you. I mean, it's kind of about you, but it's not really about you. And instead they're like, no, this is great.
I don't think that always happens though, but I think it's a testament to those institutions.
Well, you did it with care, and you picked something that is a really cool piece that's unique to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it was interchangeable with like the Heathrow Airport Marriott. Like it was very specific.
That's my next book.
It was a story. Vampires at the bar of the Heathrow Marriott.
Yes.
Oh, honestly,
it could work.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm curious actually about all of us, because you made this statement about in writing a book, an editor will cut out all of these fine details. Maybe this is just me, but I love fine details about something I don't know a lot about. All of the little intricacies that somebody uses and makes when they're building or doing something. So just in general, do you, as an audience, do we want all of that cut out, or would you wish that there was more information?
Everything that wasn't in. Exactly.
The cutting room floor.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I do.
That's
Could
interesting.
you just survey that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem. It's all about the execution, right? It's how it's done. So when you get too mired and then, because the first complaint will be, this is so dense or it's so long. So part of the balance of editing is not just taking out the little details, but like whether how much space they're taking, and the weight and the importance of them in the book. But people would be happy. This is also where genre comes. Sorry, can you tell I lecture about this stuff?
Look, when you did Oxford, I think that was one of the major things was you brought it to life. You brought the Savoy to life.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if I would like more of that.
Okay.
Is my
Everyone else would like more of that to an extent, to a reasonable degree. Okay.
Right, as long as it doesn't slow down the book. Exactly.
Right.
That's the challenge.
Yeah, it's a pacing thing for sure. For sure. Absolutely. It's balance.
Actually, that was going to be my question. What one factor would you like to have actually been able to put in
Oh.
edited out?
Ooh,
Like just the one thing that you want people to know.
So the one thing that I touched on but couldn't delve into was the Savoy Theater that was built in the 1800s. It was built by theater producers for the musical duo Gilbert and Sullivan that wrote Pirates of Penzance and all of that. And so it was literally built for that. And then the hotel was built to service that. But there is a whole book there of just the crazy theater antics and things that they had to do. You know, at one point, somebody was trying to do a production across the street of the Mikado, like a ripoff. And so, but for the Mikado, they needed all the Japanese fabrics and costumes. So the Savoy producers went and bought all the Japanese fabric for miles around. And so they literally couldn't do the show across the street because they couldn't make the costumes. I mean, like, just crazy.
It's always been a brutal industry.
Mhm.
Wow.
Actually, the British copyright system was created for Gilbert and Sullivan because people were ripping it off. And so they were like, we need a way to say that we own this. There you go,
Really?
into two factories. You will not see in the
Two for
book.
the price of one.
Yeah.
How interesting. Okay.
See, wouldn't that have been nice? Just I could have said it really fast.
But I think you're right. I think that's a different book. I mean,
Right.
the history of the Savoy of the theater itself and Gilbert and Sullivan. That's great. You now have a list.
I know. Also in the Savoy, just one more in the Savoy Theater, there's carpet on the inside that's a pattern in red and carpet on the lobby that's in the pattern in green. And it was because Gilbert and Sullivan could not agree on which carpet. So they have a hotel history podcast, and so they know all these things.
Are you serious?
Yes, and it's amazing. You guys should follow it. It's at Hotel History Podcast.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to know that.
Yeah.
No, it's so cool. So I put
know.
both carpets in.
I know.
Anyway.
Oh.
Enough.
What's the name of the podcast? Sorry. Hotel History.
But it's not just about hotels, but also about cocktails in hotels. So they're basically my favorite people.
Oh wow. Has she done the podcast?
She's going to be.
Okay. Good. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
So without all the historical detail on Ada Coleman, how much of her personality and her persona and who she was came out of your imagination versus just, details that you found? And also same question about the cocktails. How many of those were attributed to her historically or part of the creation?
Thank you for asking, because that really is sort of at the crux of the heart of the book. So what we knew was that she was very famous at the time. There were newspaper articles that had existed but don't anymore. And that she was very charismatic, that the theater producers who built the hotel ran the hotel almost like a theater. Like it was always a show, and they knew people flew in. Charlie Chaplin flew in so that Ada could make him a drink. Like it was that she was that famous. And so, but we don't know anything. We don't know much more. And so Cinnamon learns a story while sitting at the bar and having cocktails. And I did that on purpose because she learns it through bar lore, the way that, you sit at the bar and the bartender says, oh, remember that back in the day? And the story just kind of grows. And so it may be what happened. It may not be, but it's the essence of her. And that was how I sort of got around the artistic license of what we don't know, but everything. So at the end of the book, I go through everything that was real, which is most of like who she met, all of that was all real. But, the other details not. But as far as the cocktails, she's credited with a drink called the Hanky Panky, which back in the day meant like magic potion. But she was known to have invented many, many other cocktails. And when she retired at the age of 50, the guy that had worked under her took over her post. And he had never liked her. We know that he resented having to work for a woman. And a few years after she left, a cocktail book came out. And it had a ton of recipes that we know he didn't create, that we assume she did, and her name was nowhere on it. And the cocktail book says compiled by him as sort of the only nod to these are not all of his recipes. But it's a big part of the book of why her name wasn't on there.
Just keep looking at you like
Yeah.
you got to keep going with it.
Mm-hmm.
Keep moving. Anyone else? Yeah, Rob.
Are there any other sort of iconic bars that you've been to through work around the world that you are like, you visit a city and you're like, I have to go there?
Oh, I mean, that's my husband and I basically travel around and again, the research has to go.
It's daunting. It's daunting.
Yeah. One of the other ones that's always on our short list in London is a bar called Duke's, and it's a little hole in the wall. Like you'd never just walk by. You know all these things. Yeah. You would never find it. But it's where supposedly Ian Fleming came up with the term shaken, not stirred for James Bond. So the bartender there is iconic, still alive, still serving, and his stories are amazing. And so like that's another one that but the problem is when we go there for research, by the time we have the second martini, I forget what it was I was going to be writing about.
What was I supposed to be
Yeah,
checking
exactly.
out here?
So I haven't gotten very far on that.
What
book.
about New York? Top tier New York bar. Well,
I mean,
Sardi's.
Sardi's.
Yeah.
I mean, that's iconic. But there the nice thing about New York, and I mean, as you guys know, like there are, like the Algonquin is a bar that I spent a lot of time at because we did an event a couple months ago with the vodka where we reintroduced the Algonquin Round Table, which was this famous oak table where the literati of the day used to meet. And it had literally been lost in a renovation. It had been in a closet. And during COVID, the hotel did a big renovation and the manager found it. And he was like, oh my gosh, it was just the table, the big round tabletop. And so he took a couple years to have a base made. And so we actually had we gathered a group of literati and New York sort of who's who to have the first conversation around the new round table. And it was really magical. I mean, we were there when they rolled it in. And I mean, you could definitely feel the spirits of Dorothy Parker and all of those people in the room. It was really cool.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Do you have ambitions to make your own cocktail one day? I mean, with the vodka, you have like your flavors are amazing, the way that you've created the flavors, but cocktail wise, do you have ambitions to create the
Brisa-tini?
Yeah, sure. we'll workshop the name, but yeah.
I mean, I love playing around with mixology. I mean, but it's an art. I mean, it's just like being a chef. Like mixology, it's an art and a science. It's actually much harder than it seems. It's not just, throw some ingredients together. And that's why Ada was such a genius, because she really understood the sort of sweet and savory and the acid and the different elements that have to be so perfectly balanced for a good cocktail. So I would love to, but it's above my pay grade right now.
I know.
I leave it to the professionals.
I'll just run a business and write a book, and couldn't possibly.
But I
make
will
a
say,
cocktail.
starting the vodka brand, this book themed vodka called Literati, the idea was hopefully people love it and it sells really well. But worst case, I have 30,000 bottles of vodka. So there really was no downside.
On that note, any other questions? Or yes.
This is, I guess, is kind of a broad question that maybe both of you can answer. But from like the beginning of a writing, like a novel process, to like the end where it's an audiobook and published, like how long is that? Or
No, it's a really good question,
Long.
but it very much depends on the book. So you can kind of clock it. Every book takes a different amount of time to write. So every writer has a different process. So the writing time can fluctuate enormously, but generally speaking, from the like sale date, like when you sell the manuscript to a publisher, 18 months typically. And then, but it will very much depend on what the publisher's schedule is. If they have something else coming out that might be competitive, they might push it. Sometimes they'll go faster, but especially with a debut, when they kind of have to start from scratch to build up, the marketing plan, and it gets about 18 months.
Yeah.
And audio
slow.
gets recorded, hopefully, ideally, 2 to 3 months before on sale, sometimes earlier than that. But you have to have the finished manuscript in order for that to happen. So,
Do they get released at the same time?
yes, hopefully. Again, traditionally published, yes. The variation on that would be if the book is indie and they start with ebook or something and then they go and do audio. Yeah, it was about 18
Yeah,
for you?
exactly.
Okay, right.
And my agent said, that's actually pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are they doing all this time?
Well,
the book's
I think
done, 'cause
also,
the book at that point is done.
Also, but your editorial process was not as that book was really intact when you sold it, so like the editorial process was not as cumbersome as it can often be, and that can be time consuming, like when you go back and forth and drafts, and that can
I might have been happy to have that time if
yeah. Any other questions? Okay, lovely. Thank you all so much for being here, and I think we can just sit here. Yeah, we'll just stay here.
Yeah, you guys
Okay.
can stay here if you guys want to purchase their books over there, and then come back and maybe make a little line. But that was awesome.
Thank
so
you.
Insightful, so fun.
Yeah.
And thank you all for being here. The book came out Tuesday, so this is all so brand new for me. Julia, thank you.
You are so welcome.
Say hi.